When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Meta Show. Today is Saturday, October 1st, 2022. It's already October. All my German friends who are celebrating Oktoberfest, you have one more day to go hang out and get drunk, so enjoy it. For the rest of us, we are here yet again, hanging out, talking about our favorite game that is totally not dying, EVE Online. Today, we have a completely not controversial show. Nothing controversial is going to happen today. Unlike last time, 2 weeks ago, where we talked about the whole Init situation, today, we're not doing anything controversial. We're only going to talk about the most passionate subject for so many players in the game, especially a lot of people who never leave HiSec, and that is HiSec ganking and what it means for you. A fair and balanced view. And because, if you guys have seen in the community over the last couple of weeks, we have seen a large number of people who hate ganking, dislike ganking. They equate ganking with griefing. They don't seem to think the words are anything but synonymous. And they've been very loud and prolonged in their vociferous opposition to ganking. So I said, we need to do, as a favor to the EVE community, a show on ganking where not only do we talk about it, we bring to you the biggest names in ganking. And so I would like to introduce to all of you, if you have been ganked in EVE Online, there's a 90% chance that one of these four gentlemen did it to you. We have, on my right, and our co-host today, Zanus Desef from Safety. He's here on behalf of Princess Aiko herself, who was going to be here, but got so tired ganking 24 hours worth of Rorqual, she had to skip the show today. Hi, Zanus. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent.
And thank you for having me.
Above me, we have the man, the myth, the mustache, Mr. Joe Painter. He is not an angry mustache. He is a happy one.
Oh, very happy.
He might be a little hungover because he was with us last night at Rampage Incorporated, but Joe Painter is here. In the middle, we're going to skip him because I want to go to him last. On the right, Jason Kujan, our dear friend, also from Goon Swarm, partners in crime with Mr. Painter. But in the center, we have, I believe, for the first time on the Meta Show and for the first time on any stream, one of the most prolific gankers in the history of EVE Online, the one person who is more feared in the halls of CCP than even me, our dear friend Globby. Hi, Globby. He's got to work out his unmute button. So
yeah.
So we're going to talk about ganking today, because I will tell you this. Over the last week or so, we have seen a steady, sustained hate campaign against these guys who go out here and like to gank people. Last night, open comm show. Half of these guys went on there to say hello and got banned in the chat because they simply asked questions. It was weird as hell. And then last week, the 25th of September, our dear friends over on Crying in Stations had a show with Hateless Gaming. Hateless is a HiSec miner who does a lot of streaming, who has pronounced he is no longer going to stream because he keeps getting ganked in his orcas and he's tired of it and it's griefing. Now, I want to throw this out to the guys briefly, and then I want to show you guys a video. But I want to talk a little bit about this whole ganking versus griefing thing, because I think it's important. Can you guys tell me what the difference is? Because there is a difference, and it seems like a lot of these people don't want to admit it. So I'll throw that out for the group. What's the difference?
Well, I mean, if want me to talk? I can talk.
Please talk, Lobby. Go right ahead.
I will talk. I will talk. Okay. So I think that there's like 3 levels of activity when it comes to like any kind of high sec activity. You have like the ganking level, which is like just shooting people and killing them in high sec. Then you have like the griefing level, which is a little bit more intense. Like, for example, trying to farm salt, farm tears out of them, kill them for reasons outside of the game, right? And then you have the level beyond that, which I think all of us can agree is stepping over the line, going too far. And that's more like the harassment level of gameplay. So like the abusive language, the use of slurs, messaging somebody, getting blocked, continuing to message them on alts, things like that. I think all of us in the community can agree that it's problematic and should be punished. But I think there's a lot of gray area in griefing, not only because griefing can be really small and minor things, but because our definitions of what griefing is vary so wildly from like person to person. So I think that there needs to be an actual discussion that isn't people who hardly play EVE on talk shows talking about it, right? When I look at these people who go on these other talk shows, right, open comms and talking in stations, a lot of them don't even know the basics of the basic mechanics when it comes to high sec or like ganking or like any kind of PvP in high sec. So
that is the biggest problem about all of this is these people are talking about it and I'm listening, I'm screaming at my screen like, you give us way too much credit. That's the first thing. Give us way too much credit. 2, like you don't understand the basic mechanics and they always say how easy it is. And I'm sorry, but someone like Jason who can put out 30, 40 accounts, that shit is not easy, man. That is not easy. And I challenge Hateless with his 14 accounts to try it once and tell me how easy it is.
Well, I don't think he's capable. Here's the thing, right? When you go on Reddit and have these discussions, and of course I have a lot of Reddit posts in the last 48 hours with those 2 threads that came up, but there's people who vastly underestimate the difficulty of ganking. I'm not saying it's the hardest thing in the world, right? Mechanically, it may or may not be the hardest thing, but there's so many things that go on beyond the scenes. Hunting the targets, finding the targets, tracking them, trying to find them, realizing that you're in a system that nobody traffics through with the targets you're looking for, right? There's so much that goes into it. I mean, like some people use market manipulation to be able to find people who do abyssals in like super expensive fits, right? They buy out all this one type of filament, right? And so when people buy it, they can see who bought it and they go through all that effort, right? There is so much to it that like these people who argue against ganking they're not even aware of it, right? And their argument is usually, 10 people and throw away catalysts can just gank a blah, 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 blah. First of all, no, they're wrong on the numbers of catalysts it takes to gank a freighter, right? Even in a pulled system like UADAMA, it takes like 40 or 50 catalysts to safely gank it, right? That's 40 or 50 people or accounts, right? That need to be plexed, right? That need a ship, right? That need all these logistics to go in behind it to have to gank it. Not only that, you have to scout the ship coming in. You might not have a ship coming in for hours while they're waiting, right? You have to be able to tackle it properly. You have to probe warp onto it, right? You have to hope that there aren't people messing with you when you're trying to land the gank. There's so many different things that go in on it. You have to hope that they actually come into the system because you can scout it, and right before they warp to the UADAMA gate, they just warp to a station, drop their cargo off, refit to max tank, and only carry 400 mil through. And like, what you're gonna spend 120 people in T1 catalysts to gank a 500 mil freighter? No, you're not. So there's so much that goes into it. People vastly don't understand the amount of effort that goes into it. And
I think you're 100% correct. And I think one of the things that I've benefited from is going out with Joe and with Jason when we will do a Saturday night swarm based in Udama and go gank. And it's funny because for us, it's seamless on our side. We're just in the catalyst. We just show up and go where we're supposed to go. But we know full well that these guys are behind the scenes with dozens and dozens and dozens of accounts trying to make it happen for us for that 2-hour period where we're hanging out with them. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes we get a lot of content and sometimes we get nothing. And there's always the anti-gankers out there trying to stop you. So I think at the end of the day, I think the idea that somehow all ganking is griefing has gotten picked up in the minds of many players. And I don't know where that came from because I want to show you guys something. So we're going to pop over here. This is the original EVE Online trailer. This was the first trailer they ever released. I'm going to play it for you guys now. I want you all to watch it, and then I want to talk about it because I think it's going to put some of the stuff that we're talking about now in perspective. This is 20 years old, so just, be prepared. The graphics are not that great.
I'd played by the rules long enough. 8 years with the Calderi Foreign Service running intelligence ops deep inside the Galactic Federation. As far as I'm concerned, they're all a bunch of hump-sucking drones with absolutely no sense of purpose in their lives. So, I created my own purpose. I took everything I'd learned about the border zone and cargo transit routes from both sides, and I put it to my own good use. Let the state and Federation worker bees conduct the sweat work. I'll just lighten their loads a little bit. In this universe, pilots are free to choose their own economic and political destinies. Some choose to mine the resources of our great frontiers. Some choose to run cargo missions. Still others try to flex their muscle by hunting bounty on outlaw pilots. I keep all these guys very busy. Sure, they're constantly trying to build a faster ship or better weapons, but they just don't get it. Brains are a better weapon than any Megatron-class battleship or any Graviton smart bomb. And my brains have built an empire all my own. I like it out here in the New Eden. It's truly a promised land. I promise I'll discover your trade and passenger routes. I promise I'll overtake any ship that runs through my turf. I promise I'll put to good use whatever I find on board. And I promise nobody will get hurt in the process. Oh well, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. I'm here, and I'm ready when you are.
That's an EVE trailer, right? I mean, that is an EVE trailer. And I think it's frustrating to me when you think about how different things were back then when we first started this game. And you realize, like, they advertise this game as a you can do anything, and then they're talking about like trailers with pirates going out and taking other people's stuff. That was an advertised thing in this game. And today, fast forward 20 years later, we've got folks who are complaining because they think there should be places in this game that are completely risk-free, where no one can touch you and you can do whatever you want. And we already have those. I mean, that's what Abyssal Space is. The only thing that can touch your NPCs while you're in there. But for the most part, this game has always been about risk, loss versus gain, risk versus reward, the ability to impact the world, do whatever you want. There are no rules, there are no laws. And that has been steadily eroded. And I think a lot of that is because there are a lot of people who seem to think that the only way this game will succeed is if we coddle new players and make sure that they are not able to be attacked for the longest time while they're learning how to play the game. And I don't know if that's a good idea. What do you guys think about the whole, if we don't stop ganking, we're losing all of these new players, where these people are getting griefed out of the game? Is that a legitimate argument, or do you guys disagree?
No, that's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. There's this notion that safety specifically, or gankers in general, and again, I'm speaking mostly on safety's behalf, like that's the alliance that I represent. There's this notion that we attack or target newer players. I just go to our Z kill and you tell me how many ventures we've killed in the last month, and do that versus how many other ships we've killed, because it's like less than 5%. We are not out there targeting new people. We look for something to kill. When we find something to kill, we shoot it. That's it. It's that simple.
If you want to get even more into the statistics, the raw statistics, right? Some guy did an absolutely great statistical, analysis of all of the ganking kills, right? All of the people who have been ganked on Z kill, right? And he posted that since, April 2018, right? Almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, right? What he ended up calculating is that around 20,000 people have been ganked, right? Some more than once, right? So maybe, I think the number was 30,000. I don't have it on hand.
It's right on the screen. 20. He says 32,000 ganks, 60 trillion ISK, lost approximately 20,000 separate victims.
Yeah, 20,000 separate victims, right? 20,000 individuals, right? Characters have been ganked, right? If all of those characters, every single one of them, quit the game as a result of being ganked, that is still less than the number of new players that quit EVE in a single month within a week, right?
That is 100% accurate.
Yeah, that is such an inconsequential number, and this is going as far as you can take it, right? If all of them quit, it's still a drop in the bucket. It doesn't matter, right? The fact of the matter is, right, the vast majority of them don't quit, right? The vast majority of them don't, right? And even if you go with the most hardline analysis saying that, like, hey, if they've never had another kill on Z-Kill since being ganked, I think the number was only like 1,500. And the vast majority of those are alts, right? So what we're talking about here is, what we're seeing is they're basically claiming 15,000 people have quit the game, right? Forever, right? At most since April 2022 or April 2018, sorry, right? That number is completely inconsequential and irrelevant compared to the number of people that have been quitting EVE, right? Completely
especially over
irrelevant.
the last year, especially veteran
even
players.
over 1 year, yeah.
You know,
and so, like, when people say people quit EVE because of ganking, that's just factually untrue, right? Using even the most egregious numbers we can possibly use, it's just not true.
and I think when it comes down to it, one of the things that I get frustrated with is in modern EVE, and I mean EVE in 2022, we have seen a steady and significant eroding of the player base over the last 2 years. Why? We all know the reasons, and we're not going to go into it again because I don't want to turn this into some Debbie Downer show. But between the start of it was the chaos era with blackout and everything. You go beyond that, you go to scarcity. Now we're in this, quote, post-scarcity world, but the reality is scarcity pissed so many people off for so long that folks are just starting to walk away. You see a lot of very big names that are no longer affiliated with the game anymore for a variety of reasons. And you see the constant push to bring new players in. And I think that's fair. It's always a good idea to bring in new players and to increase the amount of time that they're playing. But at the same time, when you bring in a whole bunch of new players while your veterans are walking away, one, it doesn't send a great message. And two, I think it has the potential to, how do I put this in a nice way without sounding like a jerk? I think it has a potential to water down the culture that exists in the game that made the game what it was for the last 20 years. And I think that's what's happening. You have a lot of players. When EVE started in 2003, there weren't that many MMOs. You had EverQuest, you had Ultima Online, you had RuneScape, you had Star Wars Galaxies, you had a handful of these games. I mean, this game was out for WoW, so, which was the first MMO, as everybody knows. So, you know, you didn't have a lot of players coming in, or Dark Age of Camelot was back then too. You bring in all of these players that may have had some experience with MMOs, but it's a space game, it's different, and they can accept it. Fast forward to 2022, the gaming community has been around a lot longer. The way you start a new game has pretty much become a standard trope. There's a tutorial, you get handheld through the whole thing, and you're safe and nobody gets hurt. And if you die, it's not a big deal because you get all your stuff back and everything. And then there's EVE. And this game is different. And now they're trying to make it more like the other ones. But at the same time, how do you do that without fundamentally changing what this game is about, which has always been a game where loss matters. People can do, most of the time, they can do pretty much anything they want to do. And players create their own stories. And that's kind of been the way EVE has been structured over the last 20 years. And that's not what I'm hearing from some of these players who've been around a long time. Some of them, I mean, Hateless is not a new player. You know, the folks on Open Comms were not new players. I mean, they're not players now, but they weren't new players. But you're hearing more of this griefing is ganking and ganking is griefing kind of thing, which I just find really odd, because at the end of the day, ganking is people in space doing things in space. Why is that a bad thing? Is there anything wrong with that? Don't we want to encourage that behavior, right?
Wouldn't it be boring if there was nothing, if there was no danger? Wouldn't the game be more boring? Doesn't this add a story like, oh, those assholes tried to gank me and I got out? Like, that's a story. I don't understand.
Right. I mean, that's
just
right.
Yeah.
That's something cool to say. Hey, I Jason Kushin tried to gank me and I made it out. I'm awesome.
At a fundamental level, it's like playing WoW on a PvP server, if someone kills you, are they griefing you? Or are they just playing the game?
Right.
So I think this whole assertion that ganking is automatically griefing is insane. I think that 90% of people who play the game realize that ganking somebody isn't automatically griefing, right? I think this is a very, very small subset of the community that is very vocal. And I don't think that their opinion is relevant to anyone with an actual
I
build.
100% agree with Globby on this one, that this is a very small minority and they are trying to amplify this message. And my biggest fear is that CCP takes this message and is like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe we should have a opt out of PvP button. And,
Also,
that will destroy EVE
That
Online.
worries the hell out of me, I'll be honest.
That will destroy EVE Online. This game will be dead.
And if you look at the strength of ganking and the player count of EVE, when ganking was at its strongest, EVE was way stronger than it was now. And I'm not saying that the loss of ganking has made EVE worse. I'm saying that there's no correlation there of ganking being super strong, the player count being low, and people quitting. It just doesn't make any sense.
I would like to ask you guys a question because you're the ones around here doing this the most. I've been on the CSM for 4 terms. I was looking at the numbers. There have been 10 people out of the 100 plus that have been on the CSM that have had more than 3 terms, and I think I'm number 8. So I've been around doing this for a long time, and I've heard lots of complaints from people over the years, and I tend to try to push back on the worst ones. But I'll tell you, I have noticed a steady erosion in the way you guys have been able to do your ganking over the years. A steady diet of nerfs from a long time ago that have made it much harder to do what you're doing. Can you walk through a lot of the changes? Because I know we used to go through and stuff. Please,
I have a list.
We have a list. It might take like 20 minutes to go through the whole list, but we can.
Give me the highlights. I mean,
all right.
Let me get you the list. Okay. So insurance payouts used to be able to get insurance back from losing to Concord. They added Crime Watch.
Hold on. Let's stop right there. That is a massive nerf, by the way.
Yes,
you used to be able to gank in Megathrons for like 15 mil, right? Like that used to be a thing, right? It used to be. If that was reverted today, it would be an insane buff to ganking. You have no idea. That one nerf alone is an insane nerf, right? Okay, let's continue.
Okay. Adding of low slots to freighters. Adding bowheads.
Pause. Okay. That right there is insane. Not only did that make freighters be able to hold significantly more, right? That alone basically tripled the potential EHP of freighters, right? So freighters went from being easily killable in a 0.5 to like 4 Megathrons or like 10 catalysts, right? To now taking 20 or 30, right? And there have been nerfs since then. Now it takes 40 or 50, sometimes 100. If you have a fully tanked obelisk with implants, that's going to take about 100 catalysts, right? You used to be able to do that with 8, right? So just telling you the insane level of nerf that is, right? I'm reiterating that. Okay, you can go ahead to go to number 3.
Adding bowheads.
Okay.
Their stupid amount of EHP.
Bowheads basically made it. They have like 850k EHP at max, right? Which is a huge number. Tankier than an obelisk, right?
I have Concord shit on mine, so mine's like 950.
Yeah. So 850 was just like T2, right?
Yeah.
That made it so people moving their incursion ships, their marauders, and blah blah blah, instead of going through gates at 100k EHP and making them killable, they now for one, you can't cargo scan to see if it's purpled out, right? Because when you see the
there.
When you scan a bowhead, you just see the ship. You don't see how it's fit. You don't see any of that, right? So one, that's a huge nerf. We don't know what we're actually trying to kill, right? We don't know the value of what we're looking for. And 2, now instead of it having 150k EHP at most, it has 850k, like 5 times as much. And everybody uses the bowheads. Not only that, you can fit a micro warp drive on them, and they catch warp in 10 seconds. They're very difficult to gank, right?
They're very hard to gank.
Huge nerf.
Yeah. How about the input broadcasting ban? I mean, that's
even bigger than anything else, right? With input broadcasting, you could easily multi-box 100 catalysts on your own, right? Yep. No problem, right? And so that was an insane. It wasn't directed to ganking. Obviously, there was other things that encompassed it, right? Yeah. But dude, if we could input broadcast now today, it would be unbelievable. Every single one of these mentioned so far, if they were reversed today, would shift the ganking landscape insanely in favor of the gankers.
Hyperdunking removed.
Hyperdunking next.
Dunking, sorry.
Yep.
That was my favorite. Well, I trained in a bowhead specifically to hyperdunk.
So CCP introduces the bowhead, which just screws ganking over a ton, right? So I'm sitting there one time, right? All my ganker buddies are sitting there in UA down with ganking. I'm like, dude, what if like we just ejected a bunch of catalysts into space with a bowhead and just like ganked something, right? And like everyone was calling me an idiot, so I did it. It took me like 15 minutes, but I kept like boarding a catalyst, shooting the bowhead, dying, boarding the catalyst, shooting the bowhead, dying over and over, and it worked, right? Because the guy logged off and he was AFK. So I did that. It was insanely fun. It basically made it perfect. It worked best against AFK or logged off freighters. And CCP removed it because it was too good at killing AFK and logged off freighters.
Yeah, you can't board a ship now when you're criminal.
No, you can't. They just straight up removed it from the game. Yeah. So gankers finally come up with some emerging gameplay, right, that makes up for the insane nerfs that they've been throwing at them. And they removed that from the game too.
Okay, we got the Orca EHP buff.
Yeah, basically double the HP of Orcas.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Orcas are huge.
The 3-minute warp timer when you're being bumped.
That basically makes any further burn Jitas impossible.
And to that point, and I want to bring this up because at least from my perspective, that was a change that was made while I was on the CSM, and I'll tell you, that to me was the biggest nerf, like one of the biggest nerfs that could have possibly happened for you guys, and it was a big deal. And I kept hearing all of these stories from players about how horrible it was. You could get bumped for 45 minutes in a row, and you couldn't do anything about it. It was the most frustrating thing of all time. And I really wonder, was that ever true? Was that a thing? Did you guys bump people for 45 minutes at a time? Was that a thing?
Yeah, you could bump people for almost indefinitely.
Okay.
Almost
here's the thing. Yeah, here's
you could log off though.
That's true.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things you could do, right? One, if you're webbing yourself, you don't get bumped because you catch warp instantly, right? So if you had an alt web you just don't get bumped, right? Unless they're already ready to gank you, in which they suicide point you and then they gank you, right? Another thing to mention, bumping itself does nothing. You can just close your client.
It doesn't hurt anybody. I mean, that's the thing. Like if you decide to log off.
You can just click warp to station and walk away from your PC. If there was no threat, it doesn't matter, right? What bumping was great at doing was when there was already a gank fleet on standby, you could queue up a 1 or 2 targets, right? So like anyone who's unfamiliar with ganking, you can only gank once every 15 minutes because you can't board another ship for 15 minutes after you gank, right? So what you could do is if 2 or 3 freighters come in at once, you could bump them all and then gank 1, 2, and 3 15 minutes after each, right? But the whole reason for the bumping nerf, right? The people crying the loudest were like, I was bumped for 7 hours and this and that. That never happened. There was occasionally a ganker, right, who would bump for a couple hours, right, anticipating, right, that the gank fleet would come and gank that guy, right? And then eventually we would let them go because, hey, the fleet's over, right? We're all going to bed, right? We've been ganking for 4 hours. We're just going to bed, right? But I don't think I've ever witnessed somebody bumping more than 4 hours, especially not the insane, like, I don't want to call them lies. I'm sure
who would sit there for 4 hours?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Bumping is not easy.
It's
not easy.
Right?
It's not fun.
It's not easy.
You don't want to do it.
Could you imagine having to intensively click nonstop for 17 hours straight?
Manually piloting into a freighter?
Just to what? Annoy this guy who probably walked away from his computer 7 hours ago?
I mean, that's the thing. Bumping someone for 7 hours means one thing and one thing only. That guy is autopiloting and he's not at the keyboard.
Right.
So what's the issue with that? Who cares if somebody decides to interfere with somebody who's AFK playing the game? Have we not done a ton of things to fight people AFK playing EVE Online? Why is that a bad thing?
Hyperdunking was one of the best things to do to fight somebody who logged off or was AFK, right? Because what we would do, we would bump a freighter, break its autopilot, right? There's a little thing you could do to break its autopilot. And because he was AFK, you could take your time and hyperdunk it, right? Because using catalysts and bumping a freighter to hyperdunk something at the same time was very, very hard to do and took an insane amount of time. And if anybody showed up in that 15-minute period to stop you that you were doing it, a single Bantam with 1 shield rep could counter it, right? So like the only people who really died from hyperdunking were like the AFK, the people who are logged off,
red froggers,
and like people who had they were just solo flying a freighter. Like if their webbing alt had a small shield rep on it, it would never happen. So I don't know. CCP, I think, dropped the ball on that.
Well, and I think, after having a steady amount of complaints from people about ganking and equating it to griefing, and I think, Globby made a good point earlier, and I want to reiterate this. There is a difference between ganking someone's ship one time and then saying good fight or get wrecked noob or
calm down miner.
Calm down miner, exactly, which is not, in my opinion, remotely close to griefing. It is
I've been told otherwise. I've been told otherwise many times.
Unfortunately, I feel like sometimes we have issues with certain aspects of the EVE Online gameplay, whether it's GMs or whether it's CCP or whether it's other players that get super butthurt about things that I really don't think constitute even remotely coming close to griefing. I mean, given the stuff that I've seen people say to each other and the names that people have put in and things like that, comparatively, I don't think saying calm down miner is that bad a thing. But there's a difference between a gank, which is a legitimate form of gameplay, and griefing. And I think anybody that tries to conflate the two is doing a disservice not only to themselves, because it makes them sound like they don't know what they're talking about, but they're doing a disservice to the game, because ganking is fundamental to EVE. It's part of the ecosystem. It has been part of the game since the very beginning. It's not griefing. It's simply PvP. And I know that there are some people out there, the Omechas of the world, and even some of my dear friends that like to use the phrase non-consensual PvP. But to me, there's no such thing as non-consensual PvP. Every PvP situation in EVE Online is consensual, because the second you undock your ship, you are acknowledging that you are not safe and someone can hit you. Maybe something will happen to that person, but that doesn't mean that you can't be attacked.
I agree, but I think it's important to distinguish between two types of PvP. There being like quote unquote consensual and non-consensual, right? I think the term, even though it's not, it doesn't make sense, right? Because obviously you're playing a PvP game. It'd be stupid to go play Call of Duty and not expect
somebody
to be shot.
Somebody shot me. This isn't okay. I was just wanting to run around and look at things.
Yeah, obviously at some level you are consenting. And I think it's important to, when we are talking about non-consensual PvP, understanding that the player you are shooting is attempt to achieve some other goal, right? Their goal isn't a PvP, right? So I just want to say real quick, is it, let me throw a question out there, right? Is it griefing to kill somebody with the intent of making them not play the game anymore? Like to kill them and blow up their ship and make it so they just stop playing the game or they can't exist anymore? Is that griefing?
I mean, if that's
your goal, yes.
Yeah.
If your goal is to have them to stop playing the game, yes, that
is it. Do you think it should be a bannable offense if I say, hey, I am going to gank this guy repeatedly over and over again, right? So he stops playing the game.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Let's say if I had a group of
that
5
sounds
or
like
6
harassment
people,
to me.
Let's say if I had a group of 5 or 6 people, okay, and my goal was to make this other group of like maybe 2 or 3 people just quit playing the game, right? Because I think they're bad for the game, right? Do you think that's griefing? It should be bannable?
Yeah, I following the logic, yes, 100%.
Okay. Last question. If I had let's say hypothetically, a coalition of like 150,000 people, right? And I created a massive war, right? With, let's say hypothetically, 1,000 Titans at my back, right? To remove this one group from the game by taking all of their space and destroying their super capital fleet and camping them to the ends of time and moving into their region with them, right? And that was my goal in invading them. Do you think that is griefing and should be bannable?
I don't see the difference.
I don't know.
I don't see the difference either. And I think I think asking CCP to be an arbitrator, rather, if you will, of what the intent of somebody is when they're doing actions is insanely problematic when we look at CCP's track record at I don't know, bans or anything like that. I mean, this is the CCP where like a GM ice cream, right, comes out and labels something that gankers have been doing since the beginning of time as an exploit, right? GM ice cream came out and said, Colon Concord is an exploit. We will ban you if you do it. And then banned people, right?
Yeah, people got banned.
Okay, people got banned, right? CCP comes out and says, no, it's okay, guys.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I
guys.
had to get like I messaged CCP people. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, because if I'm breaking rules, I need to know.
Yeah,
because I'm streaming
I did
this
the
shit.
same
You know what I
thing.
mean?
Yeah.
I did the same thing because, again, I've been on those fleets. I've been on fleets where we pulled Concord 10,000
do it
times.
every time. It is standing. Yeah.
I gotta get banned again.
SNS, and then he released that the day after.
It's standard operating procedure, and you can do it by mistake too. You can do it accidentally, right? And so GM Ice Cream makes it illegal, bans a ton of people for it. CCP comes out and says, guys, like this GM was being dumb, right? This is not the case at all. 2 days later, GM Ice Cream comes out, hey, this is an official exploit, updates the exploit page, comes at it again, right? Bans even more people, does this entire thing again, labeling it officially as an exploit. Finally, like everybody woke up and said, hey, you know, you're technically pulling Concord by ganking in and of itself, right? This is like like you have to gauge the intent of somebody here to actually understand what's going on, because
that is
doing
the
it
biggest
happens
issue.
every time you gank, right?
That is the
Of
biggest
course,
issue. And this is
because
what
we can't
frustrates me
trust
more than anything.
people.
And I want to rail on this
CCP.
for a second.
We can't trust CCP to gauge intent.
Not only that, but why should they? Why does the intent matter? You know, like I've seen 1,000 times, you know, for a certain, I mean, listen, harassment is harassment, okay? And harassment, you can tell it's not just about intent, it's about what the person did. You can tell when something has crossed the line from a legitimate gaming activity to harassment based on what the person did. If they are contacting you outside of the game, if you have blocked them and they are evading the blocks, if they are coming after you in real life, if they are calling your work, if they are doing things like that, that is harassment. It's not about the intent of the person, it's about what they do. And the idea
let's say, yeah,
that players can, like,
agree.
did you just say, oh, you know, why did he, these guys are just ganking for the hell of it. They just want the salt. They just want that. So what? Why is that a problem? Why does it matter what you guys go out in space and do and fight for? If you decide, I want to shoot this guy because I feel like shooting this guy, that's not griefing. Even if you get nothing out of it, that's playing the game.
This whole idea that you can't blow things up for fun blows my mind.
Right?
I don't
always has to be about profit. I don't give a shit about ISK.
Like GM Ice Cream has said in private, GM Ice Cream has said in logs, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't want to leak GM correspondence, but he's basically said that stream sniping is not allowed. This is what GM Ice Cream is saying, right? And I mean, this is, CCP isn't backing it up.
Technically,
that's a Twitch thing,
it's against Twitch TOS.
Now, what I would say,
but that has nothing to do with Eve, right?
Right.
The big problem here is like how, like, are you allowed to even kill a streamer? Like, what are the rules here? Like,
I mean, that becomes the issue. And you know, listen, we've had this debate internally, and Zanus is in the partner program like I am. We've had these discussions behind the scenes, and there are some streamers who, like Hateless, like Marquis Dragon, who absolutely hate when somebody comes after them on the stream, who absolutely hate when they get stream sniped. They freak out, they pour salt, they go crazy, and the result is they become targets of more of it because, you know what? When the bully finds out you don't like what they're doing, they're going to do more of it. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got guys like me and Merc on Rampage who not only love it when we get stream sniped, have ended up getting the guys who were sniping us to join our organizations because they had a good time coming and messing around with us. Like, at the end of the day, if you're a streamer, what you want to do, like we are trying to do right now, is put on the best show that you can. And the idea that someone coming and messing with you in a game that's about people coming and messing with you is somehow a negative thing, you got to turn that into a positive. Make it fun, make it drama. Hey, if you want to freak out and all that kind of stuff, and it's kayfabe and it's not real because you think that that's fun and it draws an audience, more power to you. But if you're serious, you were serious about that, that's kind of weird. Not going to lie.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
I think that trusting CCP to be like some kind of actual knowledgeable topic to be able to gauge the intent is insane. So we should gauge actions, right? Should we ever ban somebody for saying good fight? No, never,
right?
Never.
I mean, that's
right?
just...
Should we ever not ban somebody for like saying slurs to somebody?
No,
of course not, right?
But the double standard exists because anytime someone from my alliance reports somebody for saying slurs or whatever, it gets thrown back. Well, You guys ganked him. You guys caused it. So we are responsible for someone else's response. And it's like, how am I responsible for that? Well, you shouldn't have egged him on. By me sending him a cheeky Eve mail, that's egging him on. By me saying, Miner, calm down. Like,
you should have known better, right?
I should just.
It's your fault. So because he doxes you and calls you like like multiple slurs, that's your fault because you ganked him. This is literally what GM Ice Cream has told some people in my group, right? He's been like, hey, you're literally at fault because, hey, guess what? You ganked him in the first place.
Well,
right?
and let's not forget about Ice Cream issuing warnings to people in my alliance for ganking someone that they didn't even gank. They weren't even on the kill mail.
I had the same thing. A similar thing happened to me. There was a dude, and it was on Reddit because I posted the Eve mail. A dude on Reddit was pissed off. He's a wormholer, was pissed off because I had advocated for some changes that he didn't like. And I responded with, sorry that this was good for the game. Deal with it. And he went absolutely insane and sent me back this crazy email about it. He wants to kick my ass and all this kind of stuff. So I put it on Reddit, and the guy went off the deep end, and to the point that, like, real life threats, all kinds of shit that I had to deal with personally. And at some point I get some conversation where I'm talking to somebody with the company who's like, well, if you hadn't done that, maybe he wouldn't have gone crazy. I'm like, that's not on me.
No,
the guy going crazy is not on me. I can't expect it because I responded to a dude or put something on Reddit to make fun of him because he was over the line. That I'm supposed to expect that he's a crazy person who's going to try to hurt me and my family. Yeah. I should have known that. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right? I have these logs, right? I have these logs of Ice Cream literally victim blaming. The most victim blaming you can do, right? Guys literally sending death threats. I'm going to kill you in real life. Things that they have said, right, have been brought up to GM Ice Cream. Right? Guess what? He literally blames the person for ganking him in the first place. And I asked GM Ice Cream, hey, I asked him in the official EVE Online Discord, right? Hey, can I make these logs public? He literally told me no. And I have CCP Paragon threatening to ban me from the game and banning me from the EVE Discord.
We already got banned from the EVE Discord, right, Globby?
I already got banned from the EVE Discord, right? Well, I meant threatening to ban me from the game, right? Right? Because not to edit like pictures or like logs. Obviously, I'm not editing all of them. If GM Ice Cream lets me post these to the public, I will. Right, 100%. Right, no editing, no nothing. Just let me post them to the public, okay? And then people can see how absolutely biased CCP is across the board. It's incredible.
Now let me say this. All right, Globby has taken a big giant dump on GM Ice Cream quite a bit on the show today. And I would like to say, for the record, GM Ice Cream, CCP Ice Cream is my friend. I like him. I've hung out with him in real life. He is a good dude. I think he's doing what he thinks is in the best interest of the game. I don't always agree with everything that he says or does, but he's not a bad guy. I think the biggest problem that he and everyone else in the company is trying to figure out is how do they do a balancing act between the people who are really upset because they got ganked and the people who are really upset because this is what they do and they don't want to have it taken away. And despite the fact that we've seen a steady diet of nerfs on this gameplay over the years, to the point that, Jason, I want to ask you, how many accounts were you running at the top when you guys were out ganking quite a bit, when it was a standard thing that you could do?
Somewhere in the high 20s, 27, 28, something like that.
How many do you have now?
Subbed? I think I got one sub running out right now. In a few days, it'll be 0.
Yes, similar numbers for me. I know several others.
This is the problem, as much as folks want to say, well, there's no risk to the people who are ganking because they accept that the loss of their ship is going to happen. That's true, but that doesn't mean that there isn't other investment that's made by those players to be able to even engage in that type of gameplay that is way above and beyond what the average person on the other side of it is putting in.
Well, there's no risk to ratting because I already count my lost ships as just ammo, right? There's no risk to anything because I've already accounted for the risk. It's not sound logic, right? Just because you account for it doesn't make it not risky. People fail ganks all the time. And any UAW fleet, you'll see at least one fail gank, right? Especially if we've been drinking, right?
Absolutely.
And so that doesn't mean there aren't counters. Like, how many times have we landed on a marauder that we're going to kill, and then he clicks his MWD, and then he pulls out of range of the catalysts, and we wasted all those catalysts. And we literally can't gank this ship class if they fit an MWD, right? We literally are on like one fitting choice, and actually being at your keyboard invalidates the entire ganking fleet. So like it just boggles my mind that people are actually considering this an issue, considering how easy it is to counter.
And it's
orbit your rocks if you're mining. Orbit your rocks.
Listen, you can gank as an individual in an alpha. That's possible. But
not as much as it used to be.
Obviously, not as much as it used to be.
You can even kill shuttles.
But the point is, like a multi-boxer like Joe or Jason or Globby, you can only have one alpha account on at a time, and you can't have it on if you have an omega. So nobody is running fleets of alpha gankers. That's not a thing. No. You know, these were all omega accounts that were. Well, I mean, that was the thing. They were all omega accounts. So think about it this way: you have one ganker running 30 omega accounts versus one freighter pilot running one account, or maybe two with a Weber. You change the games to the point that the guy that's doing the ganking with 30 accounts unsubs all those accounts, and you do it to benefit the guy in the freighter. You just killed 20 accounts to save 2.
Dude,
on what planet does that make any sense for a company?
Dude, I was moving my Titan through Faspera, and Wrecking Crew dropped 31 dreads on me. There was no counterplay. I literally couldn't do anything. It's insane to me that they think 31 people shouldn't be able to counter one person once they've already gotten caught and already made the stupid decision to be there in an improper ship, right? They've already made that decision, right? You've already made your bed, and you didn't fold the sheets, and you forgot to clean the piss out of it from last night, right? It boggles my mind that people don't understand that if you just shipped it to a low-sec situation or a no-sec situation, nobody would have any problem with it whatsoever at all. So the logic they're using makes absolutely no sense.
And the threshold to actually counter a gank, it's way lower than you'd think. Honestly, I think 95% of ganks, they're countered by you having one other character that's effective at scouting or repping you or blowing up the gank ships, depending on the situation. It's a really low bar that we're asking you to pass. And there's plenty of people who do it. I sit in Udama all day. I'll sit in Udama for 8 hours a day, and I'll watch the same freaking dude go past me half a dozen times because I know and he knows that I know that he's got a scout or he's got a Weber or whatever it may be, and he's going to get right through. So I'm not even going to waste my time with him. The bar is set really low here to get through. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to get your retriever ganked, all you need is one more account. If you want to get your freighter through Udama, all you need is one scout. You don't even need another account. You just need a friend. Have a friend scout for you.
If they're on timer, they're not going to fucking kill you.
Yeah, like it's not as hard as you think.
It isn't, and I think that's an important aspect. And one of the reasons I wanted you guys to be here to talk about this was because I felt like all of the other shows generally do not have you all on. They will have one or two. I mean, obviously, Wrathful was on TIS, I guess, a couple weeks ago to talk about this, and that's kind of what sparked this whole hateless situation. Zanus, do you have anything to say about that? I mean, you fly with him. Is there anything about that situation you want to talk about?
I mean, so the problem I have is Globby alluded to the Villy thing. Listen, Hateless is coming after our gameplay style, so obviously we're going to be upset. Obviously, we're fighting to defend ourselves because this is what we do. So if you take this out, so many times already. Right, and we've already been nerfed into the ground. We went through the list. We didn't even get to last December when they changed all the barges. It changed. I went from being able to gank comfortably with 3 accounts to now I need 6 minimum, and even a Hulk properly fit in a 0.5 is ungankable by the best ganker in the game, Princess Ico. She is unable to gank a properly fit Hulk in a 0.5.
Well, hey, so best ganker in the game.
Well, I mean, come on,
throwing us under the bus here.
Wow,
come on, man.
She's not even here to defend herself.
Most what's the word I'm looking for? The hardest working. How about that?
She's vicious.
We'll say that.
She's dedicated.
But I'll tell you, she gets more crap than almost anybody. Like
she
if
does.
You look at,
absolutely.
I mean, if you look at, and I think it's funny. One of the things you'll find when you become a name in EVE, People will make a bunch of fake accounts with like similar names to use or jokes about names.
Yeah.
You know, I've got it. There's a ton of different Briscs out there that you have to be careful when you're looking to find me, which one it is. You look at Ico. Oh my God. The names and the stuff that people put out about her. And just because she ganks and has no problems making fun of people when they complain, it's absolutely crazy. Like I just look at it and I'm like, damn, the amount of hate and heat that you guys generate is pretty significant. And I don't see any of you guys out here, you know, crying about it. It's just that it happens to be the nature of the beast. I mean, I think you call out hypocrisy, which I think is totally fair. But you're not. I've never heard from Ico or any of the gankers come to me and say, "Brisc, you're on the CSM. Get this person banned for saying mean things to me." And that's not been the case on the other side. Let me tell you.
Right.
You know, it's a little to me. To me, it's a little bit frustrating when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, and also, like for the record, I would like to say, if any of you were playing the drinking game where you took a drink every time Globby said "right," you are dead now. I'm sorry.
I got like 4 different people. I got like 4 people DMing me like, "Stop saying right, you motherfucker!" Like,
it's good. Now, the last question I want to ask before we get out of here, because you know we've been going on for a while. Also, by the way, if you when you're done watching our stream, the Alliance Tournament first weekend. This was the first weekend for the AT. Go check it out. I will be sending everybody there after we are done. But I wanted to ask you guys this, because this is the most common refrain that I hear from people who complain about ganking. And that is, they're ganking new bros.
Never.
Do you guys ever gank new bros?
There's a lot of new bros and freighters.
Yep.
For sure.
Right?
New players flying around in 30 mil freighters.
If I'm ganking barges, it's retriever and up. I don't
Listen, if someone's playing a 4-bill Marauder and they're under 30 days old, are they really a new player?
They're definitely not a new player.
How many times have you ganked like a character under 30 days, right? That wasn't in like something expensive.
I think my first gank ever was a Venture. And that was probably the only time I've ever actually killed a Venture.
Right. I never look at a character's age. Like I never do it.
No.
Maybe afterwards when they're talking to me, I'll like, you know, bring up like a show info, but I never look at a character's age.
Also, like new player systems are surrounded like 0.9s, 1.0s. Like you're not fucking ganking in there.
If you look at the statistics, I went through the last week of Zkill kills and then I got bored. Looking for like kills that might be new bros. There wasn't a single one in the last month. I went through all of them, right? And what I want somebody to do is like, hey, can we like do like a statistical analysis since the beginning of the year? It shouldn't be that hard, right? Zkill doesn't let you pull the data, but we should be able to. Somebody should be able to, right? How many new bros have been killed on Zkill in a ship that befits a new bro, right? If you're under 30 days old, right, and you die in a 25 bill freighter, you're obviously not a new player. You're obviously like an alt, right? But like a genuine under 30 days old character, and this is completely beside the fact that CCP's own statistics say that if you're a new player and you get ganked, you're insanely more likely to continue to play the game, like significantly more so, right?
Correct.
The only statistic that we have from FanFest or Vegas 2015, one of the two, shows basically the opposite, that new bros who are ganked actually play the game, right? So like,
and it's not even close. Like the numbers, if I recall correctly, and I went back and watched CCP Rise did this presentation. You can find it on YouTube. The numbers were pretty stark. Like it was something to the effect of somebody that is not killed by another player in the first month is 70% more likely to quit the game than someone who was ganked. It's some ridiculous number like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just weird.
Because the PvP in this game is so good. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what makes it fun. I think, and Noisy says that the 2015 stat is used without context. I mean, I go back and watch the whole video, get the context. But I think the reality is the vast majority of people come into this game are doing it because of 2 reasons. 1, they've heard that it's hard and they want to see, or 2, they like space games and they think this is
spaceships.
Cool. Yep. Right. Those are the 2 main reasons. And I mean, maybe to a certain extent, the third side is, well, this is a hardcore PvP game. I want to feel like I'm in a hardcore PvP game. But the one thing that everybody that starts the game wants to feel like is that this game is full of people, that there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of places to go, and that there are other people playing it with you. And when you go into a system and there's nobody there, and then you jump 30 jumps and there's nobody there in any of the systems that you've been in, it doesn't feel real good. So the idea that somehow trying to reduce or nerf gameplay that gets people into space is somehow going to make the game more vibrant or better, I can't agree with that, and I don't think it's a good idea to do. And I really hope that the folks out there that are pushing so hard to see these changes made for whatever personal reasons or whatever that they've got, that they take a step back and they look at what's in the best interest of the game. It's like I said, if you're telling me that the company should throw away subscribers that have 20, 30, 40, 50 paid accounts so that one person that has 2 feels a little bit better about their gameplay, that's not the kind of business decision I would tell you that is in the best interest, long-term interest of the game. It's not. You know, we want to have more people playing, doing stuff in space. Nerfing and taking away fundamental aspects of the game because somebody thinks it's griefing. And frankly, and that again, and this was said in the chat, and I agree with him, griefing is in the eye of the beholder. You know, if you define griefing based on what the person who just got hurt thinks griefing is, that's not a good idea, because nobody likes to lose stuff. Everybody gets mad. Everybody thinks, oh, this isn't fair. He's targeting me unfairly. And maybe it's just your turn. Maybe it's just you were there at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's just how Eve is, you know. And I felt bad. We've been on SNS and we have killed guys who are 30 days old or less, flying in herons with a cargo hold full of salvage, which means I know they were out exploring. And those guys typically getting caught by our gate camp is the greatest thing that ever happens to them, because we all instantly flood him with money. We felt bad that we did it because, oh, this is a legitimate new bro. Here, have a couple billion ISK. That'll take the sting out of losing your ship while you were out. And I had a guy literally last Saturday who's like, what just happened? I'm like, you hit our gate camp here in EC Tech. I'm sorry. You know, he's like, I'm a newer player. But he's like, but why did you guys send me all this money? And I was like, well, we want you to keep playing the game. We felt bad because you're a new bro. He's like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, that's what happens. So the idea that gankers are out hitting new bros has not been my experience. In fact, in my experience, the only people who are ganking new bros are legitimately new bros themselves, because that's the only ones they know how to fight. That's where they are. That's who they know to go after.
Well, a quick anecdote, right? I played started playing Eve at the age of 12, roughly, and I kept playing, just running missions until I got ganked in like some 600 mil hit around, right? And it was by a mini-lift guy. So I'm like, all right, ganking sounds cool. So I made my something awful account in 2012, right? Shit posted for like 6 months, applied to Goonwolf and got in, right? And started learning how to gank, right? Because I got ganked. And now, because I got ganked one time, right? 12 years ago, 2012, so 10 years ago, because I got ganked one time 10 years ago, right? I have paid CCP literally 400 or 500 monthly subs worth of Plex, bare minimum, probably a lot more than that, right? Because I got ganked, I have literally generated CCP easily tens of thousands of dollars of revenue, easily. So ganking is a good thing. That's my summary.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the show. I want to thank Joe and Globby and Jason and Zanus for coming on. I feel like many of the shows that we see in the EVE online talkosphere tend to have folks who have the opposite opinion of these gentlemen on, and that's why I wanted to give them a chance to do this. I don't like debate shows unless I'm the one doing the debating, so that's why we didn't have any of the anti-gankers on. But there were plenty of you in the chat to drive questions and ask things. So hopefully this will be a good counterpoint to all of the folks that you are hearing that are saying that these guys should be drummed out of the game and banned, even though they've all been banned before. At least I'm pretty sure you guys have all been banned, right?
3 times.
It's a warning. Just a warning.
Just a warning.
Yeah.
Zanus, you're not a real veteran, so you eat a bullshit ban, my friend. Come on.
I know.
Me and Jason have, so.
But anyway, I want to go around and just and say thank you. Zanus, do you have any other final words before we get out of here?
Praise Ico. That's it.
There you go.
Praise
Jason.
Appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and I really just hope that the EVE community as a whole keeps in mind like the things that really made EVE great and have really differentiated it from other MMOs. And certainly one of those things is the fact that EVE is a cold, dark, and harsh world. And part of that is that not only are you able to play as the bad guy as we choose to do here, but it's encouraged. I mean, it is absolutely just as the trailer that we watched has. You don't have, it's not because you join faction A versus faction B. You literally can go out on your own and be the pirate. And that's a very unique opportunity that Eve allows us.
There you go. Joe, final words.
Thanks for having me. Burn GS7 coming soon.
There you go. And last but not least, my dear friend Globby, who is totally hammered.
Yeah, so I took a shot every time I said right. So
Don't you dare say that anymore.
He has to call 911 to go to the hospital now.
Yeah.
I am, never mind. Yeah, I think ganking is actually really fun and good. And I think, I know a lot of Care Bears would lose their minds, but if we introduced a mission to gank people into the tutorial, I think you would, one, see a lot of people far more interested in Eve, and two, people actually realizing the threat that ganking, is. And I think that would be insanely good for the game, and I highly recommend CCP to do so, even though they never will. So.
Yep. All right. And my boy Selko in the chat says he would come back for Burn Jita. I think a lot of us wish we could do Burn Jita again.
It's never happening. Bumping nerf removed the ability to do Burn Jita.
Sadly.
Any feasible amount of ISK spent.
Yeah, I mean, we would be talking billions and billions to gank, like 2 billion freighter. Like it's not cost feasible. I mean, Burn Jita is already a loss, right? But to ask us to spend hundreds of billions extra additional just to, it's not worth it.
Yep. Not going to be a thing. All right.
The next
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining
one.
us today for our Ganking themed show. This has been the Meta Show for October 1st, 2022. I'm Brisc Rubal, joined alongside Zanis Desev, Jason Kujan, Globby, and Joe Painter. From all of us here at INN, you stay classy. Nui.